Last night's episode of Jimmy Kimmel's show began like any other, with the host delivering his monologue to the usual mix of applause and forced laughter. The audience had no idea they were moments away from one of the most explosive confrontations in late-night television. Michael B. Jordan, appearing to promote his latest directorial project, walked onto the set with his trademark confidence, flashing that million-dollar smile as he greeted the crowd. But behind the scenes, tension had already been brewing for hours. Sources close to the production said Jordan's team had specifically requested certain topics be off-limits during the interview. Known for his professionalism and measured approach to media, he had made it clear through his representatives that he wouldn't discuss his recent breakup or address rumors about his personal life. It was a reasonable request from someone who had always kept a strict boundary between public and private life. But Kimmel had other plans. As Jordan settled into the guest chair, adjusting his tailored suit, something felt different about the host's demeanor. The usual pre-interview banter was missing. Instead, Kimmel's eyes held a calculating gleam, hinting that he was already setting up his next move. So, Michael Kimmel began, his tone shifting easily from friendly to cutting. "Thanks for being here tonight. I have to say, you look great for someone who's been through such a challenging few months." The comment hung in the air. Jordan's smile flickered, but he held his composure. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. I'm excited to talk about the film." "Oh, we'll get to that," Kimmel replied, leaning back with the confidence of someone who thought he had the upper hand. "But first, I think our audience would love to know how you're really doing. I mean, personally, it's gotta be tough when your private life becomes entertainment." The camera caught Jordan's jaw tighten. This was exactly what his team had asked to avoid. But Kimmel was already pushing those boundaries. "I'm doing great," Jordan said, his voice steady but edged. "I'm focused on my work, which is why I'm here. This new project represents everything I'm passionate about as an actor and director." But Kimmel wasn't done. Sensing discomfort, he pressed forward. "That's interesting you mentioned passion. Because I've been following some stories about your recent adventures in the dating world. Must be nice to have so many options when you're Michael B. Jordan, right?" The audience shifted uneasily. This wasn't playful ribbing. It felt personal. In the green room, Jordan's publicist reached for her phone, but the interview was live. Nothing could be done. "Jimmy," Jordan said, voice carrying a clear warning, "I thought we were here to talk about my film. That's what your producers and I agreed on." "Oh, come on, Michael," Kimmel shot back, his smile widening. "You can't expect to come on a talk show and not talk. You've built this image as Hollywood's golden boy. But some of these recent stories suggest there's more to it." Producers in the control room gestured frantically for Kimmel to move on, but he ignored them completely. Jordan leaned forward, his charm gone. "What exactly are you trying to say, Jimmy?" And at that moment, it became clear to everyone watching this was no longer a typical late-night interview. It was the beginning of a confrontation that would expose the darker side of entertainment journalism and leave both men's reputations hanging in the balance. The tension in the studio was now unmistakable. Camera operators adjusted their shots to capture every expression, sensing they were documenting a moment that would be replayed and dissected for years. What began as a simple promotional appearance had transformed into a battle of wills neither man intended to lose. And this was only the beginning. What happened next stunned everyone watching. Kimmel's smirk widened as he sensed he had Jordan off balance and defensive. The host had built a career on moments like this, pushing guests just far enough to spark viral content while maintaining plausible deniability. But tonight, he had misjudged his opponent. "What I'm trying to say," Kimmel continued, his voice coated in false innocence, "is that maybe it's time we had an honest conversation about the real Michael B. Jordan, not the polished image your PR team sells, but the guy behind the staged photo ops and strategic relationships." The words landed like a slap. Jordan's hands, resting on the chair's armrests, slowly curled into fists. The camera zoomed in, capturing the moment his legendary composure began to fracture. "Carefully staged," Jordan repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "Strategic relationships. Jimmy, I don't know what kind of show you think you're running, but this isn't journalism. It's tabloid trash disguised as entertainment." The audience went silent. Even casual viewers sensed something had shifted. This was no longer banter. This was war. Kimmel, either oblivious or intentionally escalating, leaned in with predatory excitement. "Oh, come on, Michael, everyone in Hollywood knows the game. Beautiful people, beautiful publicity, beautiful careers built on beautiful lies. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking." "What everyone else is thinking." Jordan's voice rose slightly, the first true crack in his professional armor. "Or what you're thinking, because it sounds like you've got some personal issue you're trying to work out on national television." Kimmel's expression flickered, sharp and vindictive before he hid it behind his trademark grin. "Personal issue. I'm just doing my job. Maybe if you weren't so sensitive about a few harmless questions, we could have a real conversation." "Harmless questions." Jordan abruptly stood, his chair rolling back with force. Gasps rippled through the audience, and cameras swung to capture the confrontation. "Sit down, Michael," Kimmel said, his tone condescending. worsening everything. We're not done here. Actually, we are, Jordan replied, his voice carrying the full weight of his anger. This is exactly what's wrong with this industry. You bring people onto your show under false pretenses, ambush them with personal attacks, and then act like they're the problem when they don't play along with your little games. Chaos erupted in the control room. Producers barked orders, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the moment unfold. Executives watching from their offices were both horrified and enthralled. This would either destroy careers or become the biggest TV moment of the year. Kimmel, realizing he'd gone too far but unwilling to back down, pushed harder. Games. This is reality. This is what happens when you build your whole career on being the perfect guy. Eventually people start wondering if any of it is real. You want real? Jordan's voice boomed through the studio even without a microphone. Here's real. You're a bitter, washed-up comedian who gets his kicks tearing down people who actually create something. You hide behind a fake nice guy persona, but underneath you're just another Hollywood predator looking for your next victim. The audience gasped. Social media was already exploding with clips and reactions. But those inside the studio were witnessing something unprecedented. ChatGPT said, the carefully orchestrated world of late-night television was now unraveling completely. Kimmel's face flushed red, his meticulously maintained composure finally cracking. Predator. You're calling me a predator? That's rich coming from someone whose dating life reads like a Hollywood casting call. Kimmel shot back. There it is, Jordan said, pointing an accusatory finger. There's the real Jimmy Kimmel, not the lovable goofball your audience thinks they know, but the vindictive little man who can't stand seeing others succeed. The tension in the room was suffocating. Security guards near the stage tensed, unsure if they needed to intervene. The band sat frozen, instruments silent, watching the verbal war unfold. You know what your problem is, Michael. Kimmel stood, abandoning all pretense of decorum. You think being pretty and famous makes you untouchable. Well, guess what? We all see through the act. The only act here is yours, Jimmy, Jordan fired back. 20 years of pretending to be America's sweetheart while systematically destroying anyone who won't play your games. How many guests have you ambushed like this? How many careers have you tried to ruin for good television? The question hung heavy, and for the first time, Kimmel looked genuinely rattled. But instead of backing down, he made the decision that would seal both their fates. You want to talk about careers and games? Michael, let's talk about how you've built your brand as the sensitive, socially conscious heartthrob while conveniently ignoring some very interesting stories that haven't hit the tabloids yet. The threat was unmistakable. Jordan's face went deadly serious. Are you threatening me on live television? I'm not threatening anyone, Kimmel said, his voice dripping with a sinister quality never before heard. I'm just saying, maybe before you start throwing around words like predator, you should make sure your own house is in order. There are stories out there that would make your fans see you differently. The studio went completely silent, the hum of cameras the only sound. Even the crew stared in disbelief. Lines of professional conduct had been crossed, entering territory that could ruin both careers. Jordan's voice dropped to a whisper that carried more menace than any shout. Jimmy, I'm giving you one chance to walk that back, because if you're implying what I think you're implying, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. Oh, I'm not suggesting anything, Kimmel said, smirk returning, vicious as ever. I'm just wondering if your fans know about some of the interesting company you've been keeping lately. Some very young company, if you know what I mean. The insinuation hit like a bomb. Jordan's expression shifted from anger to pure, cold fury. A man whose character had just been assassinated on national television. The accusation was baseless, a desperate attempt to regain control. But the damage was done. You sick piece of garbage, Jordan said, his voice low but venomous. You just accused me of something unthinkable on live television without a shred of evidence. Do you have any idea what you've done? The cameras captured every moment as Jordan's composure shattered completely. His hands trembled, his voice cracked with rage, and the audience saw a man's reputation being destroyed in real time. Kimmel, perhaps realizing the gravity of his words, tried to backtrack. Now, hold on. I never said anything specific. I was just making a general observation about celebrity culture, and don't you dare try to walk this back. Jordan exploded, his voice echoing through the studio. You just implied that I have inappropriate relationships with young women on national television. You just destroyed my reputation with a baseless insinuation, because you couldn't handle being called out for your own behavior. The control room was in chaos. Producers shouted into headsets, trying to regain control over a situation that had spiraled completely out of hand. The legal team was already on the line, knowing this moment could trigger lawsuits that might bankrupt the network. Michael, calm down, Kimmel said, panic creeping into his voice as he realized the magnitude of what he'd done. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Misunderstanding? Jordan laughed bitterly. You just carried out character assassination on live television, and you want to call it a misunderstanding. You're done, Jimmy, absolutely done. The audience murmured nervously. Some began rising from their seats, unsettled by the collapse of what had once been a civilized interview. Security guards moved closer to the stage, unsure how to intervene. Look, maybe we should take a commercial break, Kimmel suggested weakly. No commercial break, Jordan said firmly. You wanted this conversation live. Then, let's have it. Let's talk about how you've spent years destroying people, hiding behind your fake smile and crafted image. Let's talk about how you ambush guests who trust you, then attack them when they don't give you what you want. The accusations flew. Jordan, realizing his own reputation was under attack, made it clear he would take Kimmel down with him. The host, sensing his career might hang in the balance, made one last desperate attempt. You know what, Michael? Maybe the real issue is that you can't handle a little honest questioning. Maybe you're so used to everyone kissing your ass that you can't handle someone who isn't impressed by your pretty face and rehearsed charm. Honest questioning. Jordan's voice now radiated righteous indignation. You call spreading lies and making baseless accusations honest questioning. You're not a journalist, Jimmy. You're a tabloid bottom feeder, masquerading as an entertainer. And you've forgotten the difference between news and gossip. The confrontation had escalated to total mutual destruction. The audience sensed they were witnessing history. What came next would ensure the moment was unforgettable. Jordan stepped closer to Kimmel's desk, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the cowering host. You want to know what honest looks like? Jimmy, honest is me telling your audience exactly who you are. You're a failed comedian who stays relevant by tearing down people who actually make a difference. Security, Kimmel called out, his voice cracking. Don't call security on me, Jordan said, his tone commanding respect. I'm not threatening you physically, though God knows you deserve it. I'm just giving you the same treatment you give your guests. Only I'm telling the truth. Jordan turned to the audience, bypassing Kimmel entirely. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed happens behind the scenes in Hollywood every day. Powerful people using their platforms to destroy others for entertainment. This man invited me here under false pretenses, ambushed me personally, and then made disgusting accusations about my character without a shred of evidence. The audience was transfixed. They could see the raw anger and pain in Jordan's eyes, the genuine hurt of someone whose reputation had been publicly attacked. This wasn't acting. This was a man defending his integrity in real time. You want to know why I'm really angry? Jordan continued, his voice steady, filled with controlled fury. It's not because of what he said about me. I can handle lies and gossip. I've been dealing with that my entire career. I'm angry because this is exactly what drives talented people away from this industry, Jordan said, his voice steady but full of controlled fury. This is why good people stop wanting to be in the public eye, because one day, they might end up across from someone like Jimmy Kimmel, who will destroy them for the sake of a viral moment. Kimmel tried to interrupt, but Jordan raised a hand. The gesture was commanding. Even the host seemed to shrink back in his chair. I came here to talk about a project I care about, a film tackling important social issues. A film that could actually make a difference in people's lives. Instead, I was ambushed by a man who thinks destroying people's reputations is entertainment. Congratulations, Jimmy. You got your viral moment. I hope it was worth it. Jordan began removing his microphone, deliberate and final. To viewers at home, this was what the real entertainment industry looks like when the cameras are rolling. But the script goes off the rails. This is what happens when someone with a platform chooses to wield it as a weapon rather than a tool for bringing people together. The studio was silent. Even seasoned band members, used to celebrity meltdowns, looked stunned at the raw emotion and dignity Jordan displayed in a moment that should have been his greatest vulnerability. Turning back to Kimmel one last time, Jordan said, You just destroyed your own career on live television, not because of what I said, but because you showed millions of people who you really are behind that fake smile. You made baseless accusations because you couldn't handle being called out. That's not entertainment. That's character assassination. And everyone watching knows the difference. With that, he tossed his microphone onto Kimmel's desk. The thud echoed through the studio. Straightening his jacket, Jordan looked directly into the main camera one final time. Good night, America. You deserve better than this. He walked off stage with his head held high, leaving a stunned silence that seemed to stretch forever. Kimmel sat frozen, pale, and without his trademark smirk. The audience began murmuring, then applauding, then cheering as it sank in they had just witnessed someone take a stand against the toxic culture that had infected Hollywood for decades. As Jordan disappeared backstage, Kimmel weakly found his voice. We'll be right back after these messages, he said, but the audience's applause drowned him out. The cameras cut to commercial, but the damage was irreversible. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were trending across social media worldwide. Hashtag Team Michael B. Jordan exploded online, with hashtag Jimmy Kimmel close behind. The consensus was clear. Jordan had exposed the dark side of the entertainment industry, and viewers were disgusted by what they saw. Sponsors began pulling out before the show even ended. Network executives fielded calls from outraged board members. The man who had built his career as America's lovable late-night host had revealed a far more sinister side, and the public reacted swiftly and Meanwhile, Michael B. Jordan had achieved something remarkable. He had transformed what could have been a career-ending ambush into a powerful statement about integrity and dignity under fire. He showed millions that sometimes the most powerful act is to walk away with your principles intact. What began as Kimmel's attempt to generate viral content had instead become his professional downfall, while elevating Jordan to a higher level of respect and admiration from fans who had witnessed his grace under unimaginable pressure.